Rain was falling hard over Pinewood, that kind of cold, endless rain that seeps into your bones and turns streets into rivers. Inside a small home at the edge of town, 4-year-old Ethan Wilson sat with his nose pressed to the window pane, watching. The water trickled down like tiny silver snakes. He wasn't waiting for anyone. He wasn't even bored. He was listening. Behind him, his mother Olivia moved about the kitchen, the clinking of dishes offering a kind of comforting rhythm to an otherwise gray afternoon. To her, it was just another rainy day. To Ethan, it was something else, something waiting. "Mommy, can I go outside?" he asked suddenly, his voice small but clear. She looked up from her chopping board, surprised. "In this weather? Not now. Sweetheart, it's pouring." Ethan didn't protest, but he didn't move either. His eyes stayed glued to the backyard, to the edge of the pinewood forest where shadows always seemed a little darker, a little deeper. His fingers splayed out on the cold glass, and then he whispered something that made Olivia pause. "Mommy, something's crying." Olivia tilted her head. "It's just the wind, honey. It howls sometimes when it passes through the trees." But Ethan didn't blink. "No, it's not the wind." There was something in his voice, something so certain, so calm, it made her stop chopping. Then faintly, almost like a secret being told from a great distance, the sound came again. A low, pitiful whine, barely louder than the rain. That was the moment everything changed. Ethan slid down from the window seat before Olivia could even reach for the towel. "Ethan!" she called out, but the back door was already swinging open. He stood on the porch, not even flinching as wind sprayed rain across his tiny socks. He lifted a finger to his lips, a gesture no child his age should have used in defiance, and whispered again, "Listen." Olivia did. And this time she heard it too. A sound that was not wind, not storm, but pain. She reached for her jacket and ran after him, heart pounding. What they found at the edge of the trees would become the moment Pinewood changed forever. A German shepherd, battered, mud-covered, legs bent at unnatural angles, dragging himself from the underbrush. And Ethan, he didn't run, he didn't scream. He knelt beside the creature and whispered 4 words that would echo through every heart that heard this story. "It's okay, Max. I'm here." No one told him the dog's name, but somehow he already knew. The forest was silent now, save for the whisper of rain through the branches and the shallow breaths of the wounded dog. Max. That was his name. Ethan was sure of it, even if he didn't know how. His small hand hovered just above the matted fur, hesitating, sensing the weight of the moment. "Ethan, come away," Olivia whispered urgently, crouching beside him, eyes wide with fear. "That dog is injured. He could be dangerous." But the boy didn't flinch. His voice was calm. "He won't hurt me. He's just scared. And hurting." Max's ears twitched, a low rumble in his throat. But there was no bite to it, only exhaustion. As if even growling cost too much strength. "Ethan, please, let me call animal control." "No," the child said suddenly, eyes flashing with a rare intensity. "They'll put him to sleep. I saw it on TV." Rain poured from his hair, plastering dark strands to his face. He looked impossibly small in that moment, crouched in the mud beside a creature twice his size. Yet somehow, it was the dog who looked vulnerable. "He's talking to me, Mommy," Ethan whispered, his voice almost lost in the storm. "In my head. His name is Max." Olivia blinked, not sure she'd heard right. But before she could say anything, Ethan reached out, his fingers brushing gently against the dog's cheek. "It's okay, Max," he said softly, with the kind of assurance only children and saints seem to possess. "I won't hurt you, I promise." And Max, the broken dog, stopped growling. Olivia stood frozen. The instincts of a mother screamed at her to pull her son back, to drag him away from danger. But something in the dog's eyes, wide, amber, haunted, held her still. It wasn't submission she saw. It was recognition. David, Ethan's father, arrived moments later, running through the yard with panic in his voice. "What the hell is going on? Get him away from that animal." But Ethan didn't move. He looked up, tears mixing with the rain on his cheeks. "Someone broke his legs, Daddy, on purpose and left him to die." David knelt beside the dog, careful not to get too close. "How do you know that?" Max told me, Ethan replied, like it was the most obvious thing in the world. He showed me pictures in my head. A man named Jackson hurt him because Max wouldn't fight other dogs. Then he threw him into the forest. Olivia and David exchanged a look over their son's head, one of disbelief, concern, and something else. A stirring sense that something far beyond their understanding was unfolding. "Dogs don't talk, Ethan," David said gently. "Not like people do." "I know," Ethan said, "but I can still hear him." Max whined, low and broken, pressing his head into Ethan's lap. His eyes never left the boy's face. "He says he'll come with us if I stay with him, Ethan. He's really scared." David hesitated. Logic told him to get the dog help, call professionals, keep Ethan far away. But his heart, the part of him that remembered what it was like to believe in impossible things, whispered something different. "Okay," he said finally. "Let's get a blanket. We'll take him to the car. But you have to be very careful. Ethan, he's injured. He might lash out." "He won't," Ethan said with quiet certainty. "He knows we're helping." With shaking hands and a borrowed moving blanket, the three of them lifted Max into the back of the SUV. The dog didn't struggle, didn't growl. He simply watched Ethan as if the boy was a lighthouse in the dark. As David climbed into the driver's seat, Olivia turned back. "Which vet are we going to?" "Dr. Hayes is closed," David replied. "We'll have to try." "The emergency clinic." "No," Ethan said from the back. "We have to go to Dr. Sarah. She's the only one who can help Max." David frowned. "Dr. Phillips? How do you even know about her?" "Max knows her," Ethan said, stroking the dog's ears. "She helped his first family before the bad men took him." David looked at Olivia in the rearview mirror. Neither had ever mentioned Dr. Phillips in front of Ethan. "Ethan," Olivia said gently, "how do you know she'll remember Max?" "She gave him the soft treats," Ethan said. "The ones from her own stash. Max says she was always kind." The SUV pulled into motion and silence fell, thick and filled with questions. In the back, Ethan leaned close to Max's ear. "It's going to be okay," he whispered. "I won't let them take you back to that place. I promise." And for a moment, Olivia thought she saw it. Something shining in the dog's eyes. Not just pain, not just fear, but hope. The SUV glided through the storm-soaked streets, its headlights slicing through sheets of rain. In the back seat, Ethan sat cradling Max's heavy head in his lap. The dog's breathing was ragged, uneven, but he stayed quiet, his amber eyes flicking toward the boy with every bump in the road. His tail didn't wag, but there was something almost like peace in his expression. David gripped the steering wheel tightly, eyes darting between the road and the rearview mirror. "This is insane," he muttered. Olivia didn't respond. She was too busy watching her son. He wasn't just comforting Max. He was communicating, whispering things into the dog's ear, eyes closed, expression serene, as if he were listening too. They pulled into the small parking lot of Dr. Sarah Phillips's clinic, the building dark and closed for the night. A single porch light glowed above the side entrance. Olivia opened her mouth to speak, but Ethan was already unbuckling his seatbelt. "It's okay," he said calmly. "Dr. Sarah lives upstairs. Max says to knock on the side door and tell her Max from the Miller family is here." David sighed, muttering something under his breath as he stepped out into the rain. Olivia followed, her jacket pulled tight. They left Ethan and Max in the car and approached the door with hesitant urgency. A few knocks, a pause. Then the door creaked open. A woman in her early 40s with streaks of gray in her short hair peered out, eyes narrowed. "We're closed," she began. "I'm sorry," David interrupted, "but we found an injured German shepherd and our son." He said the dog's name is Max, that he used to belong to a family named Miller before something bad happened. The woman's expression changed instantly. The sternness vanished, replaced by a stunned stillness. Max? She whispered. From the Millers? Olivia gasped. So he's real? He was stolen over a year ago, Dr. Phillips said, already reaching for her coat. Where is he? In the car, David said. He can't walk. Dr. Phillips moved fast, her professionalism snapping into place. But as she approached the vehicle and saw the battered animal inside, her steps faltered. Oh, Max, she breathed, tears instantly filling her eyes. What did they do to you? Ethan looked up at her, eyes solemn. Jackson broke his legs because Max wouldn't fight. He was supposed to die in the forest. But I heard him crying. Dr. Phillips looked at the boy, her face pale. Jackson Reeves? Ethan nodded. That's what Max says. He works for the man with the big house. The name hovered in the rain, like a curse. Alexander Monarch. Without another word, they gently lifted Max from the car. David and Dr. Phillips at either end of the blanket, Olivia steadying Ethan. Despite the pain, the dog didn't resist. His eyes never left the boy. Inside the clinic, lights flicked on and medical equipment hummed to life. Dr. Phillips moved with practiced precision, preparing an exam room. I need to assess the damage, she said. It's not going to be pleasant. I'm staying, Ethan declared. Sweetheart, Olivia began, but Dr. Phillips held up a hand. She crouched to Ethan's level, looking into his eyes. Max says he's scared of doctors now, Ethan whispered, because of what they did to him in the bad place. He needs me here. The vet was silent for a moment. Then she nodded. You can stay, but stand back when I ask you to. Ethan nodded solemnly, one hand still on Max's head. The exam revealed what they feared. 2 broken back legs, multiple fractures, 3 broken ribs, a punctured lung. Max whimpered softly as the vet worked, but never snapped, never growled. He kept his gaze fixed on Ethan. This kind of trauma, Dr. Phillips shook her head. Blunt force, consistent with being beaten. She paused, her fingers brushing, a lump near the base of Max's neck. What's this? That's the thing, Ethan said simply. The bad men put it there to track him. It's not a chip, it's bigger. Dr. Phillips frowned, retrieving a handheld scanner. When it beeped, her frown deepened. This isn't a standard ID chip. It's something else. Something military grade. David and Olivia exchanged glances. Every new detail added another layer of dread. Can you remove it? Olivia asked. During surgery, Dr. Phillips replied. Yes. You have to destroy it, Ethan said urgently. If you don't, they'll come. They'll find us and hurt Max again. Maybe us too. The vet nodded slowly. I'll disable it completely. Then she turned toward the surgical suite. It's going to be a long night, she said. I'm staying, Ethan insisted again. He needs to rest. Olivia whispered to David. He's 4 years old. Dr. Phillips offered a compromise, a couch in the waiting room. Ethan resisted at first until Max nudged him gently with his nose. He says it's okay, Ethan said, as long as I stay close. So they settled him there, wrapped in Olivia's jacket, his hand still clutching Max's blanket. Within minutes, he was asleep. In the operating room, Dr. Phillips worked through the night. At nearly 2 a.m., she emerged, exhausted but satisfied. He made it, she announced. I set the legs, repaired the lung, removed the device. She held up a sealed container. Inside, a tiny battery and a microchip unlike any she had ever seen. This isn't for pets, she said. This is tracking tech, military level, very expensive, very illegal. From the waiting room doorway, a sleepy voice replied, Did you break it? Dr. Phillips looked up. Ethan stood there, eyes heavy but focused. I disabled it, she said. Before it even left his body. Ethan smiled faintly. Max says thank you. They took him to see Max, still unconscious, wrapped in blankets, but peaceful. Ethan laid a small hand on the dog's head. He's dreaming, he said softly. About his first family, About the little girl who used to share her sandwich. Dr. Phillips choked back a sob. Lila Miller, she said. She was 7 when Max was taken. She used to sneak him bits of peanut butter sandwich. No one knew. Ethan didn't respond. He just sat beside Max whispering, and the dog's tail thumped softly in his sleep. By morning, Max was awake. The clinic was quiet, the lights dimmed to a soft glow. Olivia and David had taken turns dozing in the modest upstairs room Dr. Phillips offered them. But Ethan had risen before anyone, stirred not by noise but by something he couldn't explain. A pull, a presence. When Olivia found him, he was already downstairs, sitting beside Max's recovery table. The German Shepherd's eyes were open, glazed from pain medication, but alert and focused on Ethan. He's feeling better, Ethan said softly as his mother entered the room. He says his legs hurt, but he's not scared anymore. Olivia opened her mouth to ask something, what she didn't even know, but Dr. Phillips appeared behind her with a clipboard, answering before she could speak. His vitals are stable, she confirmed, checking a monitor. He's a fighter. Ethan looked at the dog, then back at her. Not anymore. He doesn't have to fight ever again, I promised him. Dr. Phillips nodded, then turned toward David, who had just entered with 2 coffees and eyes still heavy with worry. We need to discuss. Next steps, she said. Max will need weeks of recovery. After that, months of therapy. He can't go back to the Millers. They moved away after he was stolen. We'll take him, Ethan said without hesitation. Olivia blinked. Honey, we have to, Ethan insisted. The bad men will find him if we don't. And Max says he'll protect us. He wants to protect us. David crouched beside his son, his voice gentle but serious. Ethan, who are the bad men? The boy's face changed. That faraway expression returned. Not blank, but as if his thoughts were coming from somewhere deeper, somewhere not entirely his own. They have a big house, he said, with a red door. In the basement there are cages. They make the dogs angry with needles, then they make them fight. His voice cracked. Max says most of the dogs don't survive. Dr. Phillips exchanged a sharp glance with David and Olivia. There have been rumors, she said, for years, but no one's ever found proof. Police say it's all hearsay. I can help, Ethan said. Max knows where it is. He remembers the way. Olivia knelt beside him. Sweetheart, even if that were true, we can't just go there. It's dangerous. We need to tell the police. They won't believe. Me, Ethan whispered, his voice small. They never believe kids about important things. A knock at the front of the clinic made all of them freeze. Dr. Phillips frowned. It's too early for clients. She disappeared down the hall and returned moments later, her face pale. There's a man here, she said quietly. He says he's from animal control. He's asking about a German Shepherd brought in last night. David stood immediately. Did you tell him? No, she replied. I said I had to check records. Max began to growl, a low warning sound that rumbled from his chest despite the pain. Ethan's eyes widened. It's him, he whispered. The bad man. Max says it's Jackson, the one who broke his legs. Before anyone could speak, footsteps echoed down the hallway. A man appeared in the doorway, tall, dressed in a crisp dark suit with cold blue eyes and a practiced smile. Ah, he said smoothly. There he is. Ethan immediately stepped in front of Max's table, arms outstretched. You're not from animal control, you're lying. Ethan. Olivia gasped. The man's smile tightened. I assure you, young man, I am. We received reports of a dangerous stray German Shepherd. I'm here to take him into custody. David stepped beside his son. He's not a stray, and he's not dangerous. He was beaten and left for dead, and this vet has already examined him. Dr. Phillips stepped forward. His injuries were not accidental, and I removed a tracking device from his neck, not a microchip, a military-grade tracker. The man's eyes flickered, but he kept his composure. I'd like to see the device. It's been destroyed, Dr. Phillips said flatly. Protocol for unregistered implants. A moment passed. Max's growl deepened. Ethan didn't move. I have the authority to retrieve this animal, the man said, pulling out a folded document. Court order. David didn't look. Leave it in the mailbox. Our lawyer will review it. We don't have a lawyer, Olivia whispered. They don't know that, David whispered back. The man's face darkened. If you don't cooperate, there will be consequences, not just legal ones. Ethan's voice cut through the tension. He's calling the man with the white hair, the one from the red door. Dr. Phillips turned sharply. Who? The boss? Ethan said. Max doesn't know his real name. They just call him Mr. M. David's jaw clenched. Alexander Monarch. The man said nothing. Then he turned and walked out. Silence hung in the room like smoke. They'll be back, Ethan said, his voice low. Max says they never stop. Dr. Phillips nodded slowly. Then we need help. There's someone I can call. Detective Jessica. Ramirez. She investigated the dog thefts. She might believe you. David looked down at his son. Ethan, can Max tell you where the other dogs are? Ethan nodded. 15. In cages. They're waiting. Then let's make sure someone listens this time. Outside, the rain had finally stopped, but a storm was still coming. By the time Dr. Sarah Phillips made the call to Detective Ramirez, something had shifted in the room. The fear was still there, coiled and quiet like a sleeping snake, but it was no longer in control. The man who claimed to be from animal control hadn't returned, but his presence lingered like a shadow no one could shake. Still, in the aftermath, it was Ethan who had anchored them, his calm, his certainty, his bond with Max. David watched his son now, seated quietly beside the recovery table, whispering to the dog who had nearly died in their backyard. No one had told Ethan about Dr. Phillips. No one had shown him the way to her clinic or the name of the Miller family. Yet here they were, hours after a decision he made with nothing but a feeling. And Max was alive. You picked her, David said, sitting beside his son. Not just a vet, the right vet. Ethan didn't look away from Max. He remembered from when he was little. Max said she smelled like lavender and peanut butter crackers. David chuckled softly, the sound more incredulous than amused. And you just knew? I didn't know, Ethan replied. I just listened. Dr. Phillips stepped into the room, a phone pressed to her ear. Ramirez is coming. She'll be here in an hour. Olivia, who had been pacing near the window, stopped mid-step. She actually believed you? She believes something strange is going on, Dr. Phillips replied. And she's been waiting for an excuse to reopen the Monarch investigation. Monarch, David said bitterly. The man with the empire no one touches. They touch, the vet said grimly. But they get burned. Ethan looked up. Max says Monarch isn't afraid of the police because he owns some of them. The room went quiet. Then Ethan added almost absently, but not Ramirez. Dr. Phillips gave a small, tight smile. Smart dog. As they waited, she explained more. Alexander Monarch, she began, owns a dozen properties in this county alone, but most are just shells. Fake companies, hidden names, nothing you can trace directly back to him. Jackson Reeves, Max's abuser. He's just one of many hired hands. And if Ethan is right, there are more dogs. 15, Ethan said, without hesitation. Still in cages. Then we need to get to them before Monarch does. But how? Olivia asked. We don't know where the house is. The red door. It could be anywhere. I saw it, Ethan whispered. In Max's memories, it's on a hill. There's a barn with broken windows and a big tree that looks like it's bent in half. Dr. Phillips looked at him carefully. You saw all of that? Ethan nodded. And a mailbox with numbers 1449. David stood abruptly. We can find that. I know the outskirts of town. There's only one road with 4-digit house numbers. Old Pine Ridge. And the vet? Olivia asked quietly. Why did Max want her? David turned to Ethan again. Yeah, out of everyone. Why her? Ethan was quiet for a long time. Then he said, "Because Max remembers being safe there. Even when his first family took him for shots, he wasn't scared. Dr. Sarah didn't lie to him. She told him when it would hurt, and she gave him treats after." Dr. Phillips smiled faintly. "That was a long time ago." "He remembers," Ethan said. There was something unshakable in the way he said it, and suddenly Olivia understood. It wasn't just that Ethan chose her, it was that Max did. The boy was just the voice. A light knock interrupted their thoughts. Detective Jessica Ramirez stepped into the room, her coat still dripping from the rain. She was tall, with sharp eyes and a no-nonsense energy that seemed to settle over everything like a verdict waiting to be delivered. "Dr. Phillips," she said. "Mr. and Mrs. Wilson. And you must be Ethan." The boy looked up at her and nodded. "You're the one who asks good questions." Ramirez blinked, then smiled. "Let's hope so." She listened quietly as they laid everything out. The attack, the tracking chip, the man who visited, and Ethan's strange but detailed knowledge. She said little, just took notes. When it was over, she leaned back in her chair and looked at Ethan. "You said you saw a number." 1449? Ethan nodded. "On the mailbox. And this man, Jackson, he hurt Max because Max wouldn't fight?" "Yes." She stood. "I need to confirm a few things, but if you're telling the truth, and I believe you are, then Monarch's operation is bigger than we thought." Olivia stood too, nervous. "What can we do?" "Stay quiet," Ramirez said. "Let me handle the legal end. No phone calls, no social media. If Monarch thinks the dog survived and is talking to the police, figuratively or not, he'll come." "Harder." "What about Max?" David asked. "He's not safe here." Ramirez looked at Ethan. "What do you think?" "He wants to come home with us," Ethan said. "But only if you help the other dogs first." Ramirez nodded. "Then let's get ready." As she turned to leave, Ethan called after her. "Detective?" She paused. "He says thank you." Ramirez smiled. "Tell him he's welcome." The chip sat on the metal tray like a dead insect, small, unassuming, yet undeniably sinister. Dr. Phillips turned it over with a pair of tweezers, her brow furrowed, her gloves smeared with the faintest trace of blood. "It's not just a tracker," she murmured. "This thing is broadcasting." Detective Ramirez leaned closer, careful not to touch. "Live transmission?" Dr. Phillips nodded. "Or it was until I fried it. But look here." She pointed to a tiny engraving on the casing. "That's serial code. Government style. This didn't come from a pet store." Ramirez snapped a photo. "I'll run this through our off-grid database. But if it's what I think it is, Monarch's not just abusing animals. He's experimenting on them." Olivia, watching from the corner of the room, wrapped her arms around herself. "What kind of person does this?" David spoke before anyone else could. "The kind of person who doesn't see dogs as living beings, only as products." Ramirez sighed. "We've suspected for years that Monarch had black market contracts. Biotech, genetic conditioning. There's a lab in his Nevada property that disappeared overnight. Vanished. Records, samples, staff, no trace." Ethan sat silently in the corner, Max's head resting in his lap. The dog was awake but quiet, his body too broken to move. Yet, his eyes tracked every word, every voice. "He knows," Ethan said suddenly. "He remembers the lab, the cold lights, the loud buzzing, needles that never stopped." Everyone turned toward him. "They tested sounds on him," the boy continued. "Pitch levels, noise bursts, to see if they could control anger with sound. Max says they could make some dogs go crazy, but he didn't break." Ramirez frowned. "Sound-based manipulation?" Dr. Phillips nodded slowly. "That's not just dogfighting anymore, that's weaponization." "Do you have proof?" David asked. "Not yet," Ramirez replied. "But this chip is a start. And Ethan's details, no one could have made that up, not with this accuracy." Olivia moved to Ethan's side, her voice low. "What else did Max show you, baby?" Ethan looked up. His face had changed, grown older in hours, not in years, but in weight. He saw other dogs. Worse off than him. One had burns. Another couldn't bark anymore. They called him Silencer. He was the most dangerous, but also the saddest. Ramirez knelt to his level. Do you remember where? What the place looked like? Ethan nodded. Slowly. The red door, big, with black iron bolts. Inside it smells like bleach and rust. And something worse. Can Max guide us there? She asked. Yes, Ethan said. But only if we leave soon. The bad man, Jackson, he's coming back. With others. Dr. Phillips stood. Then we move now. Ramirez straightened. No uniforms, no noise. Just me and a tech from my team. We scout first, confirm the site. If it's real, we call in everything. David hesitated. Can we help? Yes, Ramirez replied. But you stay outside. This isn't a family trip, it's a sting. I want to go, Ethan said. Everyone froze. You can't, sweetheart, Olivia said gently. It's too dangerous. But Max won't go without me. He can't lead the way alone. He doesn't trust anyone else. Ramirez glanced at Dr. Phillips, who gave a reluctant nod. She's right. Without Ethan, we have nothing but a broken dog and a bad hunch. I'll keep him safe, she added quickly. David looked like he might protest, but stopped. There was something unshakable in his son's gaze, some old soul resilience that made denial feel foolish. All right, he said, but I'm coming. Too. Me as well, Olivia added. We'll go together, Ramirez agreed. But once we get there, Ethan stays with me. You two hang back. They agreed. There wasn't time to debate. Ramirez stepped outside and called in her tech. Dr. Phillips packed field supplies, medical kits, sedatives, a portable scanner. Max was gently loaded into a padded crate, still too weak to walk, but aware enough to watch everything. I'll sedate him for the trip, Dr. Phillips said. Too much motion could undo the repairs. Ethan knelt beside the crate, pressing his forehead to Max's. Don't be afraid, he whispered. We're going to find the others, and this time you won't have to do it alone. The dog's tail flicked once, a whisper of agreement. As they pulled away from the clinic in an unmarked van, Ramirez riding up front with her partner and David behind the wheel, Ethan spoke softly from the back. The place is west of town. Past the old water tower, there's a road that turns to gravel, then a wooden gate. That's where they kept the trucks. Ramirez nodded without turning. How do you know that? Ethan didn't answer, but Max shifted in his crate as if responding for him. They drove in silence for a long time, past neighborhoods, past farms, into woods darker and older than the town itself, the kind of woods that had secrets in their roots. There, Ethan said suddenly, pointing. Turn left. The gravel crunched beneath the tires, trees thickened, light dimmed, and then they saw it, a mailbox, rusted, faded numbers still visible. Behind it, an old farmhouse with a red door, and behind that, a barn with broken windows. Just as Ethan had described, they had arrived, but what waited inside had yet to reveal itself. The van rolled to a quiet stop, tires crunching on wet gravel, headlights off. They were less than 50 yards from the red door. Detective Ramirez raised a hand for silence. Her tech, a lean man named Jace, had already pulled out a compact drone and launched it silently into the air. Through a small screen, they could now see the perimeter. The footage was grainy, infrared, but the shapes were clear. Dogs in pens behind the barn, large cage-like enclosures. A figure moved among them, slow and heavy-footed. There's at least a dozen, Jace whispered, possibly more inside. Ethan, sitting quietly between his parents in the back seat, leaned closer to the screen. That's him, he said. The one with the beard. His name is Lawrence. David's heart tightened. He's the one who came to the clinic? Ethan nodded. He pretended to be someone else, but Max knew. Jace zoomed in. I've got a partial plate on a black pickup. I'll run it. That barn's wired with motion sensors. See the blinking on the outer wall? Ramirez frowned. That means cameras inside. We can't just walk in. Can't we call for backup? Olivia asked. We will, Ramirez replied. "But we need to confirm criminal activity first. Right now, all we have is trespassing." Ethan's voice broke the silence. "You have Max's chip." Ramirez turned to him, surprised. "The one Dr. Sarah took out. It proves they used illegal tech. That's not trespassing. That's federal." The detective blinked. Then she smiled. "You're right." She tapped her radio. "Dispatch, this is Ramirez. I need 2 patrol cars at 1449 Pine Ridge, quiet approach. Confirmed unlicensed surveillance and suspected animal abuse. Possible federal offense. Do not engage until I give the go." David looked out the window. He's looking around. Lawrence. Like he knows something's coming. And then he turned. The figure on the screen paused mid-step, eyes fixed directly at the drone. A second later, he lifted something. A remote. "Pull back," Ramirez ordered. Jace reversed the drone, but not fast enough. A burst of static, then black. "EMP pulse," he muttered. "Short range, military." Olivia gasped. "They have military tech?" Ramirez nodded grimly. "Monarch's money buys whatever he wants." The night grew still again, but the tension had thickened. Inside the van, even Max stirred in his crate, whining low. "He knows," Ethan whispered. "Lawrence knows we're here." As if to confirm it, the sound of an engine revving echoed through the trees. A second vehicle pulled up behind the barn. A long, black SUV. Out stepped a man in a gray coat. His silver hair glinted in the moonlight. Ethan's voice shook. "That's Mr. M." Ramirez tensed. "Alexander Monarch, here in person." David couldn't believe it. Why would someone like him come out here himself? "To erase evidence," Ramirez said, "including the dogs." "No," Ethan said suddenly. "He's not here to clean up. He's here for Max." Everyone turned to the boy. "He wants him back." He said Max was their best trial, the only one who resisted the control. Ramirez stepped out of the van and signaled Jace to follow. "Stay inside," she told the Wilsons. "Lock the doors. Don't open them until I say." But as she and Jace disappeared into the trees, Olivia turned to her son. "Ethan, what else did Max say?" "He doesn't know how they found us again." Ethan said, "He thought the chip was dead." David frowned. "Unless." Suddenly Olivia understood. The tracker. The van. Jace had brought the clinic's vehicle. Ramirez's car was clean. But if Monarch's team had embedded tech in Max's crate, or used the chip signal before it was disabled, it could have pinged their location. "We have to warn them," David said, unlocking his phone. "No signal. They're jamming." Olivia realized. "Oh God, they're going to ambush Ramirez." Max started barking, a weak, raspy sound, but insistent. He clawed at the inside of the crate. "He says we have to go," Ethan whispered. "Now." David hesitated. "We can't just leave." Ethan looked at him, fierce. "If we don't help, they'll take the others. All of them." David met Olivia's eyes. Then he reached over and unlatched the door. They moved through the trees carefully, with Ethan leading. He didn't run. He didn't speak. He simply followed something only he could feel. An invisible thread that tugged at him, pulled him forward. They found Ramirez and Jace crouched behind a fallen tree. "You shouldn't be here," she hissed. "Go back. They know we're..." "Here," Olivia said quickly. "They're jamming signals. You have to act now." Before Ramirez could respond, a voice boomed from across the field. "Bring the crate." Monarch stood beneath a mounted spotlight near the barn, flanked by 2 guards. One held a long metal rod, electric, humming. "I know you're watching, Detective," he called. "I also know you're alone, so here's the deal. You give me what's mine, and I forget this little stunt." Ramirez rose slowly from behind. "Cover. I don't take orders from criminals." Monarch smiled coldly. "Then you take losses." He snapped his fingers. Lawrence emerged from the barn, holding a trembling, scarred dog by the scruff. The animal's ribs showed through its skin and one eye was swollen shut. Max barked, louder this time. Ethan clutched his ears, tears in his eyes. "That's Silencer," he whispered. "They'll hurt him to send a message." Ramirez turned. To David. Get Ethan out of here. No, Ethan said. I can stop them. Ethan, Olivia started, but he walked forward into the clearing. Ramirez reached for him, but stopped, because Max was moving. Despite the pain, the dog forced himself upright in the crate. He stumbled forward, then limped after Ethan, every step agony, but driven by something stronger than pain. Monarch froze. That's impossible, he said. He should be crippled. Max stood beside Ethan, facing the light. No, the boy said loud now. You don't own him, you never did. And for the first time, Monarch looked afraid. The clearing was silent, so silent that even the wind held its breath. Max stood with trembling legs beside Ethan, staring down the man who had nearly destroyed him. Monarch didn't move. Neither did Lawrence. Even the guards hesitated, uncertain, whether to advance or flee. Ramirez stepped forward, one hand on her holster. Back away from the dog, she ordered. Now. Monarch lifted a single eyebrow. You're bluffing. You won't shoot in front of a child. Ethan didn't blink. You're wrong. She'll protect us, just like Max did. Something in the boy's voice, its steadiness, its unflinching truth, cut deeper than any weapon. Monarch took a step back. You don't understand what he is, he said, almost pleading. That dog is the product of years of development, millions in research. He's more than an animal. He's family, Ethan replied. And he's not alone anymore. Behind him, the woods rustled. 2 patrol cars rolled slowly up the road, lights off but presence loud. Backup had arrived. Monarch growled under his breath. I warned you, I told you what would happen. He signaled to Lawrence. But before the man could act, Max barked. It wasn't loud, but sharp and clear. And then, chaos. The other dogs, caged. Behind the barn erupted. Dozens of voices, some hoarse, some strong, began howling, barking, snarling. Not in fear, but in fury. The sound was deafening. Ethan clutched his head. They're scared, but they're not broken, not yet. Ramirez pulled out a flare gun and shot it into the sky. The red streak lit up the clearing, and in that moment the standoff shattered. Monarch turned to flee, but was met by 2 officers closing in fast. Lawrence tried to grab Ethan, but Max lunged. The pain was visible. His injured legs barely supported him, but he snapped forward with all the power of a guardian. Lawrence screamed as teeth found flesh. He fell, tackled by officers seconds later. And just like that, it was over. Except for the cages. Ethan ran. David chased after him. Together they reached the barn doors. They were padlocked. Back up, Ramirez called, now with a crowbar in hand. With one swing, the door cracked open. Inside, 15 dogs, every one of them filthy, trembling, silent at first. Then they saw Ethan. One by one they rose. Some limped, some whimpered, but all moved toward him. They know, Ethan whispered. They know it's over. He stepped inside, unafraid. Max followed, slow but determined. He nudged a young black and white puppy who had collapsed from fear. Licked the face of an old bulldog missing an ear. Names, Ethan murmured, eyes fluttering shut. I can hear them. He pointed. That one's Daisy. The brown one, Tank. The skinny one in the back. His name is Milo. David swallowed hard. How do you know that? I don't, Ethan said. They told me. Ramirez knelt beside one of the cages, examining the locks. No key. We'll need cutters. No time, Ethan said. He walked to the nearest cage and laid his hand on the latch, and then, click, the lock opened. Everyone froze. Ethan moved to the next one. Click, and the next. Click, you're opening them, Olivia whispered. With your hands? With trust, Ethan said simply. They just need to believe it's safe. Ramirez's voice cracked. I've never seen anything like this. You're not supposed to, Dr. Phillips said behind her. She had just arrived in another vehicle. Most people stop listening before they learn how. Max barked once more, weak but firm. Ethan turned. There's one more. He pointed to the farthest cage, a rusted, half-hidden enclosure tucked behind old equipment. The others hadn't noticed it. But Max had. Ramirez cleared the debris. Inside was a dog unlike the others. Bigger, meaner, or so it seemed. His eyes were wild, his body tense. "Don't," Jace warned. "That one looks feral." But Ethan stepped forward. "No," he said. "He was the first, the one they hurt the longest. His name is Brutus, and he thinks no one remembers him." The dog growled, but softly. A warning, not a threat. Max walked up beside Ethan and barked again, lower this time. Brutus stopped. His ears perked. Max barked once more, then, miraculously, Brutus sat. Ethan reached out. The cage opened. No force, no tricks, just understanding. And Brutus stepped out, tail wagging slow and unsure, like a heart remembering how to beat. Ramirez. "Turn to the officers. Call animal rescue, call transport. We're taking every one of them." Ethan smiled. "They don't want to be saved," he said. "They want to belong." One by one, the dogs circled Ethan, not begging, not afraid, just present. And for the first time in a long time, they were free. The adrenaline was beginning to fade, replaced by something slower, heavier. The weight of aftermath. Rescuing the dogs was only the beginning. The operation at 1449 Pine Ridge had been exposed, yes, but Monarch was already gone, vanished into the night, leaving behind only the crumbling shell of his cruelty, and the law wasn't built for shadows. That's why Ramirez moved quickly. By dawn, the property had been locked down by authorities. The dogs transferred to a secure animal rehabilitation center under police guard. Max was moved with Ethan's insistence into a private kennel where he could recover quietly, out of reach. But that night, hours later, Ramirez sat in her car, staring at a laptop screen. "I don't like it," Jace muttered beside her. "Monarch doesn't run, he plans. That's what worries me," she replied. "He didn't fight, he let us win." She tapped her earpiece. "Dr. Phillips, you ready?" On the other end, the vet's voice came through, calm but firm. "We're in position." A new plan had formed, one born from urgency. Monarch still had properties across the state, and somewhere, a second facility. One more remote, more secure. Ethan had mentioned it once. A place with steel floors and flickering lights. It hadn't matched 1449, which meant there was more. Much more. "Ethan's resting," Olivia said over the comms. "Max too, but..." Before he fell asleep, he said something. Ramirez leaned forward. "What?" He said, "It's not over. Brutus remembers another gate." Jace frowned. "Another gate?" "Different lock. Metal sign with the letter E." Dr. Phillips inhaled sharply. "That's Monarch's Echelon Ranch. Long abandoned, or so they say." "Pull it up," Ramirez ordered. A few keystrokes, and satellite imagery filled the screen. Middle of nowhere, no listed power, no business license, but fencing. Fresh tire tracks, and beyond the tree line, something odd. What looked like heat signatures underground. "We have to go now," Ramirez said. "Before he moves again." David's voice came through next. "We'll go with you." Ramirez hesitated. "It'll be riskier this time." "We know," Olivia said. "We're not leaving them behind again." An hour later, the team gathered just outside Echelon Ranch's perimeter, 2 SUVs tucked behind brush, headlights off. Jace launched a second drone. The land was quiet, eerily so. "Thermals are consistent with a buried structure," Jace confirmed. "We've got ventilation units hidden in the hills. Someone's living here." Max was awake now, lying in the back of Dr. Phillips' vehicle. Bandaged, weak, but alert. Ethan knelt beside him. "He says he doesn't know this place," the boy whispered. "But Brutus does. He was here before they moved him to the cages." Ramirez radioed the precinct. "This is unofficial. No lights, no sirens, just observation. I'll request a warrant once we confirm entry." Then she turned to Ethan. "Can you tell if the others are here?" Ethan was silent for a moment. Then he pointed. "There, a slope behind the main barn. From the surface, it looked like nothing, but beneath..." "They're sleeping," Ethan said. "Not dead, just drugged." The team advanced under cover of night, through weeds, over fences, ducking motion sensors. At the base of the hill, they found it, a steel hatch half covered in leaves. No visible lock, just a biometric scanner. "Jace?" Ramirez asked. "Give me 10 seconds." He pulled out a device, hacked, into the scanner, and after a short buzz, the hatch opened. Stairs led down into darkness. Cold, sterile air rushed out. They descended. What they found was worse than anyone had imagined. A hallway lined with kennels, glass-fronted like hospital. Observation rooms. Inside, dogs strapped to tables, others confined in strange metal pods. Some unconscious, some twitching. And screens. Dozens of screens monitoring vitals, behaviors, even thoughts. "It's a lab," Dr. Phillips whispered. "Not a kennel, a controlled behavioral lab." They moved fast, room to room. Jace recorded everything. Then, near the far end, they found a control panel still active. Dozens of labeled files. Rage protocol, submission index, canine response to directed noise, but one name stood out. Project Shepherd. Ramirez opened it. Video logs. Max. They watched in silence. Images of him strapped, tested, prodded. His resistance. His refusal to attack. He had failed their program. That's why they discarded him, Ethan's fists clenched. "He remembered all of this," he whispered. "But he didn't want to show me until now. He didn't want me to be afraid." The weight of that sank in. What it meant for a dog to protect not just a body, but a mind. Ramirez downloaded everything. "We have enough to bury them," she said. Then, a sound. Footsteps from above. "Move," Ramirez ordered. They exited fast, back, up the stairs. As they emerged, a black truck screeched around the corner of the ranch. Lawrence. But he wasn't alone. 3 men with rifles jumped out, eyes wild, scanning for intruders. Max, in the back of the SUV, barked once, sharp, commanding. Ethan turned. To his parents. "He says to go, now." Ramirez didn't wait. She fired a warning shot, then another. The intruders ducked. The team sprinted to their vehicles. Engines roared, shots rang out, but no one stopped. Back on the road, sirens finally sounded. Ramirez had triggered a final backup line. Reinforcements were already on the way, and Ethan, he never looked back. Chapter 9. Return to Safety. A quiet moment. They drove in silence. The kind of silence that wraps itself around your bones. Not because there's nothing to say, but because what just happened can't be put into words. Ethan leaned his head against Max, whose body trembled beneath bandages but no longer from pain. He was safe now. So were the others. And that knowledge was the only warmth left in the early morning air. Dr. Phillips was behind the wheel, steady despite the fatigue. In her eyes, Ramirez sat beside her, scanning her phone every few minutes as updates from law enforcement rolled in. 3 arrests, she said finally. Lawrence, 2 of the shooters. Monarch's gone. Again. David, seated in the back with Olivia and Ethan, didn't say anything. He just stared out the window, jaw tight. "They'll find him eventually," Ramirez added. "With what we pulled from the lab, he can't hide behind money forever." But it didn't feel like a victory. It felt like a delay, and they all knew. By the time they reached Dr. Phillips's clinic, the sun was peeking over the horizon. Birds chirped like nothing had happened. The air was cleaner here, softer, the kind of air that made you forget, even briefly, that the world had sharp edges. They carried Max in first. Dr. Phillips insisted on checking him immediately. He didn't resist, just looked at Ethan the entire time, like the boy was the only thing keeping him tethered. "You held up, soldier," she whispered to the dog as she dressed a reopened wound. "You always do." Max licked her wrist once in return. A silent thank you. Olivia and David brought in Ethan's overnight bag. He hadn't gone home in days. But when they tried to suggest he rest upstairs, Ethan shook his head. "I'm staying with Max." "No argument here," Olivia said, kissing the top of his head. Just let us put fresh blankets down. They set up a cot beside Max's kennel. Not that he used it. Ethan climbed into the kennel itself, curled up beside the dog like it was the most natural thing in the world. Max sighed and placed his head on the boy's chest. Dr. Phillips smiled from the doorway. I've seen thousands of animals, thousands of people, but never this. What do you think it is? David asked. She thought a moment. I think it's not about words, or even thoughts. I think it's about pain. They both carry more of it than most, and somehow that lets them speak a language we can't. Ramirez sat on a stool, watching them both. The chip, the tests, the whole project, Project Shepherd. They were trying to manufacture what Ethan and Max have naturally. Olivia's voice cracked. They tried to force connection. But you can't force trust, Dr. Phillips said. You can only earn it. For the first time, silence felt like peace. They stayed like that most of the morning, letting stillness settle, letting safety take root. Reporters tried calling. Officials asked questions, but no one in that room answered. Not yet. For now, there was only healing. At noon, something shifted. Max stirred, then stood, wobbly but upright. Ethan stood too, watching him. The dog walked, one slow circle, then two, and then stopped in front of the door. He wants to go out, Ethan said. Dr. Phillips opened it. Outside, the world was warm and bright. No more rain, no more shadows. Max walked to the grass, sniffed the air, then lay down under the old pine tree in the yard. Ethan followed, curling beside him. They didn't speak. They didn't need to. Inside, Ramirez sat with Dr. Phillips, reviewing footage. Monarch knew what Max could do, she said. And he feared it. Not just the defiance, but the loyalty. Phillips nodded. Because loyalty can't be bought, and that terrifies men like him. David and Olivia stood at the window, watching their son rest in the grass with a dog who should have never survived. You think it's really over? David asked quietly. No, Olivia said. But it's enough for today. And for the first time in days, they let themselves breathe. That night, when the stars came out, Ethan asked to sleep outside with Max. They made him a little tent on the deck, within sight of the clinic lights, just in case. Before he fell asleep, he whispered to his mom, "He's dreaming again." About what? She asked. Running, Ethan said, with no one chasing him, and then, softly, he wants to find the others. Olivia frowned. We already did, sweetheart. Ethan shook his head. Not the dogs, the people like me, and with that he closed his eyes, Max's breath warm against his arm. Somewhere out there, darkness still lingered, but in this little circle of quiet, there was light. The world didn't stop when the truth came out. It didn't suddenly become brighter. It didn't cheer or applaud or promise that nothing like this would ever happen again. In fact, for most people, life went on the same. News coverage barely scratched the surface. A few headlines, some outrage, a promise of an internal investigation. Then the cycle moved on. Bigger stories took over, louder scandals, flashier crimes. But for Ethan and for Max, everything had changed. The clinic became a quiet sanctuary, a kind of halfway home for those who had nowhere else to go. Dr. Phillips expanded her operations with the help of donations that trickled in after Ramirez's quiet media leak. People were moved, not by the scandal, but by the image of a boy curled beside a wounded dog, speaking a language only they understood. Brutus, Daisy, Milo, and the others were slowly rehabilitated. Some would never fully heal, but they had begun to trust again. And trust, like wounds, grew in time. Max made progress faster than anyone thought possible. Within a month, he was walking again. Within 2, he was running. Not far, not fast, but with joy. He would leap awkwardly toward butterflies in the field behind the clinic, tail wagging, tongue out, and always, Ethan at his side. Their bond didn't weaken. If anything, it deepened. Ethan spoke less to other people now, but he didn't need to. His world had found clarity in silence, and Max was enough. Ramirez kept working behind the scenes. She submitted the evidence. She testified quietly in a sealed courtroom. Monarch was still missing, but the net was closing. A few low-level employees flipped, properties were seized, bank accounts frozen. He had become a ghost, but one being hunted. Olivia and David returned home eventually, but not without changes. Olivia left her job to stay with Ethan full-time. David installed a new security system. They planted lavender by the porch because Max liked the smell. Some nights Olivia would find her son sitting outside on the swing, Max resting at his feet. Neither spoke, but sometimes Ethan would hum, a soft tune he never sang aloud. One Max always fell asleep to, a melody not taught but remembered. And then, one quiet morning in early spring, Ethan woke with a start. "He's dreaming again," he said. Olivia sat up. "Max?" "No, someone else." She waited. "There's a girl with braids in a white room." Olivia touched his forehead, worried. "Are you okay?" "She's scared," Ethan said softly. "She's waiting." It wasn't until 2 days later that Ramirez called. Another facility. Same blueprints. Different state. They hadn't found it yet, but they would. Because Ethan remembered. Because Max had remembered before him. Because the ones left behind were still calling in dreams, in silence, in fear. And now, someone was listening. The Wilsons. Didn't move. Not yet, but they prepared. They kept bags packed, car fueled, passports renewed. Not because they were running, but because they had joined something they didn't ask for. A mission not chosen, but inherited. And when Ethan whispered in the dark, Max always answered. Even if just with a breath. Even if just with stillness. There are stories no one tells. Stories too quiet for headlines, too strange for reports. Too beautiful for simplicity. The story of a boy and a dog who found each other in the rain. Who stood against cruelty. Who taught the world something ancient and almost forgotten. That love isn't language. It's loyalty. And sometimes, miracles. Aren't loud. They come in the form of a broken dog walking again. A child listening to more than words. A family, standing in the gap between harm and healing. This wasn't the end. Just the first chapter. Because somewhere out there the silence still waits and Ethan is listening.